Hello, everybody, and welcome to Game Changers with my guest today, Maggie Baird. Maggie, thank you so much for doing this. I know that you're crazier busier now than you've ever been. Yes?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, and this is very weird because there's a bit of a delay now that we're live. So I'm hearing you speak at a different time than I'm seeing you. But that'll be fun. That'll be a challenge.
Oh, good. That's happening. I don't know why that's happening. I'm going to pull the broadcast up on Facebook so I can see what people are saying to us. But I'm sorry that it's an unnerving change. It shouldn't be. And we're also about a mile away from each other. Right?
True. That's true. Up to two.
Yeah. So let's talk about that first, because I've got the COVID crazies who tune in every day to find out everybody's COVID story. So how has this, I mean, I know that Billie was in the middle of a tour, or you had to stop a tour, right?
Yeah, we had to stop a tour. Well, it's all of our family, because Billie and Finneas, of course, are both working together. And then Patrick is on the crew and I'm helping Billie. And so we were in Miami and then Orlando, and the whole thing was getting very scary and weird. And then we went to North Carolina, and then we pulled the plug and came home. We took our tour bus home, actually, which was kind of an adventure. We loaded up the tour bus with food and we drove home, which was kind of a little road trip unto itself. It was fun. So we got home on March 12th.
And you had a lot of contact with a lot of people prior to that, but no, you guys averted the COVID. Well, there is a delay.
Well, we were in states that, it's a pretty weird delay. I don't know how to make it better. If you have a way, let me know. But you know what was weird? I actually got very angry about that this week, because when we were there, we were begging for information. We were really trying to find out what was the right thing to do. Should we stop? Should we go home? And I was really angry that when I heard that Trump knew as early as he knew everything he knew, because we were having a large gathering in Florida, right? And we were being told there was nothing there. We were, at the time, everyone was being told it wasn't airborne, etc. So it makes me really mad to think that even maybe we shouldn't have even had those 3 shows. I mean, who knows? But the minute we had information, we stopped and came home. So no one was sick. Actually, interestingly, we were sick on the road home, but that was just a normal tour sick. You always get sick on tour because Billie is rehearsing really hard for days and not sleeping, and then you do the show, and of course you get sick. But it wasn't COVID.
I remember when you first got back, we had been in touch because we were talking about like maybe playing Scrabble or something on that was in the days before we all got really busy again, right? And so let's play some games on the computer. We never did it, but we talked about it. But I remember you weren't feeling well, and I remember thinking, oh my God, I hope not, but it wasn't. Thank goodness it wasn't. So I know COVID impacted you initially, that it gave you a lot of time. How has it now empowered you? Because I know it has at the time.
Well, I think really 1 week into COVID, we came home and we're like everybody. We, started watching movies, and, it was just kind of controlling your anxiety, I think, not knowing what was happening. It was winter. It felt fine to be home. And, but, about less than a week in, I think I got this idea. I was talking to Billie and I said, it's so sad that so many people need food and all these restaurants are going to go out of business, because remembering that in the beginning of COVID, no one even wanted to take out food, right? No one even wanted to order out. And so the restaurants were just, in such bad shape. And so because we're vegan and we really care about our small local plant-based restaurants, I was like, well, why don't we set up a platform? Well, what I did first was I ordered some food from Sage, which is one of our favorite restaurants, and I had it delivered to the Midnight Mission. And as I did that, I was like, wow, this is a good idea, but it's much more complicated than I thought. And so I called a few friends the very next day and I said, I have this idea if we could make this a more formal thing. And just a bunch of amazing people who are all kind of out of work with time on their hands were like, I'll help you, you know. So my friend, event planner, and a person who specializes in marketing for vegan restaurants, and a record label person who helped us with their staff. I mean, we just had so many people helping us. So we pivoted to like a full-on charity, and that's called Support and Feed.
And Maggie, tell us how Support and Feed works, would you, please?
Yeah. So Support and Feed works by what we do is we take donations, and then we use those donations to get food from plant-based restaurants, and then we deliver that food to organizations, charitable organizations where people are in need, people who have food insecurity, especially in communities that are suffering from food apartheid, food nutrition deserts, lack of healthy food. So we are doing several things at the same time. We are supporting small businesses in our community, which are plant-based restaurants. Therefore, we're trying to help with the climate crisis, because we know that a plant-based diet is one of the most important things you can do to help with climate crisis. And then we're taking that food to people in need who need nutritious, healthy food. So it's a really intersectional charity, and we're partnering with amazing organizations like the Sisters of Watts or Supermarket or the Boys and Girls Club. And we're in New York, and we're in Philly. We have Voces Latinas in New York, and Sylvia.
Tell us some of your favorite restaurants in each of those cities.
Oh, wow. Well, I hate to say my favorite restaurants because I have so many, but we have in our group, we have Sage, which is an amazing restaurant with an amazing mission. You know, Molly, the chef, helps so many people in so many ways. Crossroads, Pura Vida. We have Hinterhof in Highland Park. We have Epic Vegan, which is pies. She makes amazing vegan pies. Native Foods, Veggie Grill. Beyond Sushi in New York, Marty's V Burger, By Chloe. Oh gosh, I don't want to forget anybody. In Philly, we have Hip City Veg and Bar Bonbon. Amazing places all over.
And so how can people who are watching help this cause? How can they get involved?
So you just go to our website, supportandfeed.com, and you can make a donation to our general fund, which means we'll get the food where it needs to go. We'll use the restaurants that are available to get it there. Or if you have a favorite restaurant that's on our site, you can make a direct donation right to one of those restaurants. Depending if you need a tax deductible one, you go to the general fund. But that way, if you have a favorite restaurant you love and you want to make sure your food gets delivered through that organization or that restaurant, we'll do that. But you know, we've fed so many meals this summer. We fed the Boys and Girls Club 5 days a week for 5 weeks, 5 different clubs, and 4 of them. That was in addition to all our other centers. So people have been so generous. We have all volunteers, Vicki, all volunteers.
So I was going to ask you, can they give of their time as well as their money to help?
Yeah, we have volunteer drivers in LA. We have volunteers helping us make connections. So yeah, of course, any connections to knowing about grants or funding, that's always super helpful too. You know, that's something you don't think about, but it's really, really important, like connecting the dots. You know, what I've learned about 501c3s is it's very, you know, we get a donation from an organization like Broadway Cares, and they donate to us, and then we take the food and we take it to the Sylvia Rivera Food Pantry. You know, so you're helping so many different charities along the way. You know, if you donate to us, your food could end up at the Boys and Girls Club or the Midnight Mission or the Union Rescue Mission. So, and we have
my next question: who have you targeted the meals for? So,
people experiencing food insecurity. Women's shelters, LGBTQ centers, especially places with children and families, because we have an educational mission too. We're trying to help educate people about the importance of healthy eating for themselves and the planet. So we are trying particularly to feed children and families, because that's where you can make lasting impact. And, you feed a child, then you're helping them learn that day. You're helping them feel better, happier and healthier that day. So that's a large part of where we're focused. But we sprinkle our food into a lot of different places, and a lot of organizations that already exist are doing amazing work in this space, and we're trying to uplift them as well. Supermarket is an organization, Lamert Park, that feeds people every week vegan meals, so we help with that as well. So it's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of good people out there in the world doing amazing things, and it's nice just to be able to be a little tiny part of it.
That's so much of who you are, Mag. My experience with you, I've known you, I don't know, for about 10 years. And I have found this was an idea. Okay, we're going to order takeout. How can this be? And then you just ran with it. And I've seen you do that with other things, like with your own film. You had an idea, you started writing it. Tell us about that and how that happened.
Okay, so I think a lot of people who are actors or creative people can probably identify with this.
Mm-hmm.
You go through your life as an actor, especially, you're so subject to other people, like other people hiring you and other people letting you audition. And, and I think a lot of people say, like, sooner or later, I'm just going to write my own material, right? And listen, right now, that's a lot more common. People do it all the time now, but it didn't used to be so common. And so in that case, I was inspired. I got an idea for a film. I always loved independent film. It's my favorite kind of film. I like small movies. I like personal stories. I like mumblecore films even. I really like those kind of small slice of life movies.
Wait, what's a mumblecore film?
A mumblecore film is like a super, super low budget. It's like, look, now people shoot their movies on their phones, but it used to be like a super low budget, self-made movie, very little budget, and few locations. The Duplass brothers started with mumblecore films, and various other amazing directors. Lynn Shelton, who sadly died recently, she started in that world. So I always loved those kind of movies, and I was inspired by those filmmakers. In fact,
would Tangerine be an example of that? Because they shot that completely on iPhones and stuff.
Yeah, they did. I don't know if that's called mumblecore, but yeah, definitely that was an inspiring film. I watched that on Christmas Day one time while I prepared Christmas dinner in the kitchen. It's kind of a Christmas movie if you ever watch it. It's weird.
I've watched it many times. I had him on as a guest, Chris on as a guest. Yeah,
so good. I love it. It's a Christmas classic.
A Christmas classic. I would love to sit my mother down to watch that Christmas classic.
I have friends who watch Die Hard every Christmas. They consider that a Christmas classic. I think if your movie takes place on Christmas, certain people, becomes their movie. But anyway, I was inspired by that world of filmmaking, and in fact, I used to watch always like the special features on filmmaking, and so when I got this idea for this film, which was inspired very loosely from my own life, which was that I used to go out to open mic nights, and anyway, I was a sort of amateur hobbyist songwriter, and then my son Finneas displayed this crazy, freakish talent for it, and this was Billy was still pretty little at the time, so this inspired an idea for a movie, and so I basically, everyone I talked to about the movie, I never ever said like, "Hey, I'm writing a movie." I always said, "I'm making a movie."
Nice.
Yeah, from the very beginning, I was like, "I'm making a movie." And I found that when you say, "I'm making a movie," well, everybody wants to be involved with a movie that's going to get made, right? So people would jump on board, like, "I'm making a movie." And okay, like, would you like to be the editor? Would you like to co-write it with me? Would you like to, whatever. So amazing people came on board, and then you're committed. You're like, I guess I'm making a movie. And then we did a Kickstarter for the movie and got funds with that. And we used.
I want to stop there for a second, Maggie, because you did a Kickstarter. I know a lot of people. Kickstarter was a really big thing then. How many years ago was this?
It was 2012.
Okay, so a lot of people were doing Kickstarters back then. And some people were making their goals, some people weren't, but you kind of really wrote the book because you made a science out of it. I remember you offered to school me on how to do it because you were incredibly successful. But I also remember you were putting in unbelievable amount of time to make that work. But you did. You figured it out. So I think it's the same thing that you've done with Support and Feed. It's when you set your mind to something, you figure it out and you make it work. It's very inspiring. So, okay, so you raised enough on Kickstarter to make your film.
Yeah, but let me just say to that point, because I think you're right about Support and Feed and the movie, but they also have something else in common, which is that I got a lot of help from a lot of people, right? Somebody recently said to me that I'm not a control freak. They said it as a compliment, and I heard it as a compliment because I don't think I am a control freak. I really like to involve a lot of people. And so I think with the movie, it was similar to Support and Feed. I had an amazing team of people, you know, working with me. I didn't need to have extra credit. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, bring on people to help you. Teamwork, cooperative work. I think it's crucial to me. I work better with, you know, I could have a full idea and everything, but I want to have somebody to run it by and somebody to do it with. Life is more fun that way, you know? So we did the Kickstarter and we did make a science of it. We worked really hard, me and Jill, who was our director, and Tessa, our producer, and Lori, who's my co-writer. We worked really hard to learn like what made a Kickstarter work. And we tried to create a really good campaign, partly because we were using that campaign to attract some investors, right? Some people liked the script, but they don't know if we can make a movie, right?
Right.
And so the fact that we were able to pull off a Kickstarter was like proof to them that we could actually make a movie, right?
Right.
It wasn't just making a Kickstarter. It was like a test run for the actual movie. And we probably worked as hard on that Kickstarter as, you know, anything.
I remember when you were doing, you were working so hard at that. But you had like spreadsheets and I mean, you had it all worked out.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. It's a lot. You cannot take on a Kickstarter lightly. You know, I mean, if you happen to be of the moment in the perfect time, you might sail through. Otherwise, you've got to be working super, super, super hard. It's not an easy thing to do.
I think another thing, we were talking a little bit before we came on the air, and you also mentioned that you think part of the reason why people have rallied to help you with things is because you've spent years showing up for other people. And I know for myself, you always showed up for me. Whenever you could, you came to my living room, you supported women who write, you offered to help me personally because I couldn't monetize the life of me, and you were willing to share what you had. And so because we were talking about being of service is of service to ourselves in so many ways. So if you'd speak on that a little bit, because it's very inspiring.
Well, I think that, you know, I mean, I'm not making this up. I think everybody pretty much knows that when you give, you give unto yourself as well, that the gift of giving is a gift to yourself. You know, it's what makes life worth living, really. I mean, I don't really see much joy in life for me if you're not, you know, involved in, there's a lot of bad stuff in the world, and it's hard to cope with it, I think, in any action you're doing to help anyone make you feel better. So yeah, somebody said, how did you get so many people to contribute to your Kickstarter? And I said, like, I think it's because I've given, you know, so many kids rides, you know, over the lifetime, you know, picked up so many people's kids or whatever. Like, you know, after a while people are like, okay, I'll kick in $50, you know, which of course I didn't do for that reason. It's just,
right.
I love my life. I love being a mom, and I loved everything involved with it. But I think right now with Support and Feed, all of us involved feel very fortunate. You know, it's kind of keeping us going, to be honest. You know, I don't know how everybody else is doing out there, but it's a hard time. I know everyone's suffering, and we're suffering too. It's a scary time. Climate change is, you know, I can barely sleep at night thinking about it, and how many people are hungry, and it's gonna, let's be honest, it's getting worse. So I think having something like Support and Feed, and I know many people have things like Support and Feed, or just anything, all the people making masks, I think that's how we survive,
Maggie, explain to us how a plant-based diet can help the planet, please.
Great question. It's pretty straightforward when you think about it, all right? There's a lot of facts and figures and numbers, but I'm going to give you the really obvious answer, right?
Okay.
You've got so much land on Earth. You've got only so much water, right? So are you going to use that land and water to grow food for people? Or are you going to use it to grow things that you then feed to animals to then get food from the animal? Complete overuse of the land and the water, right? You can feed so many more people with the crop that it's going in to the cow, etc., using that land better, right? Not only that, but cows are a major source of methane gas from burping and farting. This is a major problem in the world. It's a huge problem. It is a huge problem. And not only that, the Amazon, everyone was so obsessed, rightly so, with the Amazon burning. Well, we've destroyed the Amazon rainforest for 35 years to do what? To raise beef cattle. So, I was wearing a T-shirt 35 years ago that said, save the Amazon rainforest, stop eating meat. We've known this for a long time. Sting did his concert for the Amazon rainforest 30 years ago, So this is the environmental impact of eating animals. And that also includes the dairy and egg industry. Terrible use of resources. So it's not only a way to help with the climate crisis, it's a way to help feed more people. So to me, the simplest thing you can do, whatever you do, as far as there's so many reasons to be on a plant-based diet. There's your health. Is the animal cruelty factor. If for some reason none of that speaks to you, the planet, it is literally something you can do every single day. It is within your control to do something to help the planet every day.
Okay, so Maggie, let's speak to something practical. Sorry to interrupt you, but and I really like the way you answered that question, because it's the first time it made very simple sense to me. I am gluten-free. I am dairy-free. I am leaning towards going to a total plant-based diet. It's expensive. Organic is expensive. Vegan cheese is way more expensive than regular cheese. Everything, gluten-free products are more. How can we do this? How can the person that doesn't have a big budget,
right? How
can they be plant-based? How can they do a plant-based diet?
Okay, I'm going to speak to two different elements. One is we generally undervalue food in our society. We've been trained to be like cheap, right? The cheaper the food you're getting, you probably should question that, right? Because who grew that? Who picked it? Who put it in a truck? All these people need to be paid, right? So if you're underpaying for food, you're underpaying everyone on that whole list. So it's something, if you have the funds, right? If you can afford it, you vote with your pocketbook, right? You vote with your wallet, and that.
Okay.
So there's that. Now, let's say that you don't have the funds.
Right.
For many, many years, I was a vegetarian and then a vegan before all these substitute foods were available, right?
Right.
So substitute cheese, so instead of substituting cheese, we didn't have the cheese on our pizza. It was still really, really good. It was piled with vegetables. Vegetables are generally fairly inexpensive. Beans and rice beans is the most common food among long-lived populations. Beans and rice are fantastic. So there is affordable food within that. Organic tends to be more expensive. Once again, what are you paying for along the way? And we're not talking about people who are really struggling financially. Those are the very people we're trying to feed with Support and Feed.
Right. Right.
I think if you're really, really struggling financially, then you're looking at more whole grain foods, rice, beans, quinoa, vegetables. These are the healthiest foods, and they are not so expensive. What's expensive is gluten-free food, substitute meat products. Those
Right.
are pricey.
Although organic vegetables are a lot more expensive than,
They can be. But I also subscribe to something called, what's it called? I forgot the name of it. Imperfect Foods.
Right.
So I get a produce box of not the prettiest looking stuff, the prettiest looking fruit, but it's cheaper.
Right. And I love that. And I love, for those of you who don't know, you still live in the house that you've lived in all along, correct?
Yeah.
You guys are still there, living in your house, living your life, living in your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where our memories are, it's where, it's home,
It's pretty fabulous. Okay, so, and for those of you who don't know, Maggie's kids and my kids went to the local dance. Let's get to that later because there's a great story that goes into the future. But let's talk about the vote. We're going to talk about social issues first, and then we're going to get into Maggie's story as an artist and as a mother and what's happened since. But how can we get out the vote, Maggie? I mean, I have a question for you first, because I was just listening to them talk. You were saying last week you got really incensed because the idiot chief knew all along and he let all those people die. How do you feel about Woodward? Because I'm really torn about how I feel about Woodward and the fact that he did not speak up knowing what he knew.
Yeah, I'm quite torn too. But I will say that, I do agree, it was hard to know. You go to your president for the information, right? And yes, he was saying it to Woodward privately, but then he wasn't saying it publicly. So yeah, could he have come out and said, wait, he said this? I don't know, because Trump always worms his way out of everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's technical.
I'm imagining that Woodward thought, well, the scientists are saying it, so the public will get it, right? But, not taking into account that when the president is modeling something completely different and telling people not to worry and that it'll go away and that it's a flu. And by the way, you know what I think? Why is everyone so cavalier about the flu? Have you ever had the flu? It sucks. It's horrible. I've wanted to die when I've had the flu. I run to get my flu shot. So
really?
Yeah, people like, oh, it's nothing more than a flu. I'm like, I don't know what flu you've had, but
as soon as people get a fever, they say, "Oh, I have the flu."
The flu levels you. It levels you. It makes you crawl to your bed and cry. Horrible. And and this is worse than the flu. So, but they're always playing it down like it's just a flu. I'm like, I've had the flu. I do not want the flu.
Okay, so I don't do flu shots, and I have been blessed not to get it. But how do you feel about the vaccine? And how do you feel about anti-vaxxers? And what do you think is the solution here, if not the vaccine? And how about this vaccine that they're already testing, and this woman took the second one and got incredibly sick? He's pushing it before Election Day. How do you feel about all of this?
Wow, this is getting so deep, Vicki.
I'm obsessed with, this is what we're doing.
Well, I'm not a scientist. Let me just say that. So I would say this about here's my personal feeling about vaccines. My personal feeling, because I have friends who are not in favor of vaccinating, and I have friends for whom I understand that and I respect it. I also know people who I think are really extreme and in denial about the benefits of vaccines. I think there are grayer areas, and it all needs to be considered in your personal circumstances, etc. Some vaccines are for meningitis. Like, I'm going to run to get that vaccine if my child is going to be in a bunch of kids in a dorm, right? Another vaccine, you might go, oh, there's a risk. I don't think that vaccine, whatever. I think there are grayer areas, and I don't think it's right to talk so black and white about it. But I also think there's a lot of insanity right now of people being, I don't like the conspiracy theory stuff. I think that is counterproductive. I don't know. Would I get a vaccine? Yeah, if it has safely been tested, yeah, for sure, I definitely would. Like I said, I get the flu vaccine. Listen, I get the flu vaccine because when I have had the flu, it has been devastating, has made me very, very ill, and I don't live a life where I can do that. I can't just be out of commission for 2 weeks. I can't do it. Some people maybe can. I cannot do that, and I can't make my daughter sick. I can't make my son or my husband sick. I can't do it. And I feel the same way about COVID, like this is deadly for many people, and this is where I think we have to have this attitude of loving others. It's really not just about you. It's really not just about you. I'm sorry you don't want to wear a mask. Tough luck. People don't want to wear a seatbelt. You know what I mean? And
how are you finding the masks around here? Because I speed walk around our hood. I did until the fires, and there's very low mask wearage in our neighborhood. Actually,
my neighborhood is pretty good about it. Fortunately, our neighborhood is very good. But yeah, I don't get it. I really don't get it. But it's not. It's. I think it's this inability to. I don't know. It's like some kind of brain thing, which is an inability to think about other people somehow. To project concern for others, and that would be part of the COVID vaccine. There's no way we're going to get back to being on tour and having concerts for 10,000 people in an arena if there's a vaccine. That's not going to happen. So.
Well, you guys are finding creative ways around it. I've been loving Finneas's videos. They've been amazing. And yeah, okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. So how can we make a change? How can we, as citizens of this country, get out the vote? What can we do to get active? We don't have a lot of time. It's a matter of weeks now.
Well, there's a lot of great organizations. Adopt a State is a great program with Vote Save America. They have a great program which you can get updates each week, send out postcards. I think that's a really good one for people because I know people want to be active, right? And they don't feel like they can go out and do stuff. You can register if you're feeling young and healthy. You can register to be a poll worker because you know that we're in danger of having a poll worker shortage. And that's Power the Polls is a great organization to connect, to sign up to be a poll worker. Getting out the vote, Adopt a State would be a great one for reaching out. But individually, I think we have to all think ahead. We have to make a plan. Everyone says the most important thing you got to do is make a plan and make that plan to vote early. However you can do it. In LA, we're lucky. There's lots of polling places open the week before. Make a plan to go with someone. Or if you're going to vote by mail, make that plan to do it early. Put it on your calendar, just like you do everything else. We have this meeting. It's been on my calendar for 2 weeks, right?
Right.
Put it on your calendar now. This is when I'm going to vote. And this is how I'm getting my ballot in.
In Los Angeles, we're going to be able to put the ballots in the box outside of the polling place, correct? That's what
I think so. I mean, I'm not going to be the expert on that either, but I believe so. And I think we'll have those extra polls. I think they're making even some big, I don't want to say Dodger Stadium, but we're going to have some bigger polling places. Right. But the important thing is not wait till the day. And the important thing is to make sure everybody knows what their plan is. And if by any chance you end up at your polling place, keep in mind, if you are in that line when the polls close, you can vote. And make sure everybody knows that, because the last election, that was a major problem. People got told at the time the polls closed that they needed to go home. All around the country this happened. And that's not true. Right. If you're in line, you can vote. I think spreading that information so everybody's super aware is incredibly important. And also, there are many campaigns that are focused on the swing states and the down ballot elections. Today on NPR, I was listening to them talk about the propositions in LA. It's really not too soon to be doing our homework. I know I've been guilty of the night before cramming, trying to figure out, who is this? And, you can start now, wherever you are. Everything is, we know. Do
you know when we should be getting our ballots? And when we should start worrying if we haven't received it in the mail?
I don't know for California. I know one state. I don't know which one it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I want to say South Carolina, so I don't know. One of them you can vote now, but
Wow.
I'm not sure when our date is. But hey, you should have a election person on here. Oh, you know what? You should have one from Vote Save America. They have really good info.
That would be excellent. That would be very worthy for as we get closer to it. All right, so Maggie, let's get personal. Let's have some fun. So let's talk about Maggie, and let's talk about, I don't even know, where did you grow up, Maggie?
I grew up in a little town in Colorado called Fruta, Colorado. It's a little tiny town near a slightly bigger town called Grand Junction, Colorado, but all on the western slope of Colorado.
And then I went to for a while. That's a small town too.
Which town?
Leadville.
Oh yeah, I know Leadville for sure. You grew up in Leadville?
I didn't grow up there, but I lived there for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I went to college at the University of Utah, and then I went to I was an acting and dance major there, and then I went to work at a Shakespeare company in Massachusetts called Shakespeare and Company, and then I moved to New York City. So
how did the dream start to be? Were your parents artists? Did they encourage it in you?
My parents were not. My parents were sort of church singers. They both sang in church. My father was a school teacher. My mom was incredibly talented seamstress, but she was a mom, stay-at-home mom most of my life. And but they were encouraging. I don't know why. I'm sure maybe you and your daughter too, had that thing where from a tiny little age I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be an actor. And I had no idea, just like knew from. I think that's all I ever said I wanted to be from little tiny age. I don't know why that is. A lot of people have that story. I don't know why, but it's all I ever wanted to be. My parents were definitely supportive, as supportive as you can be of of that when you don't know anything about it, how to do it. So yeah.
But I'm wondering about the nurturing and the parenting that you got, because obviously it's been such a priority in your life. Were you well parented? Were you well loved and supported? For sure. My parents were awesome. My parents were really very kind and very civically minded. One of my brothers is an attorney and lives in Salt Lake City and is very civically minded. And my other brother was a member of Congress for 12 years. Wow.
Yeah. And he actually just didn't run again after that. He left after Obama's first term because he'd done his time and had two little children to take care of. But my parents were very civic minded. My father taught civics actually, which is kind of funny. I don't really think about that much. My parents, sadly, but my mom died in her 50s, which sucked. And then my dad died 19 and a half years ago, sadly, too. But my father had been, a civics teacher, very involved he was the mayor of my town at one point, not when I lived in. Yeah, he became the mayor. Like he was very, my parents definitely put, service at the front of life. Like that was, and they sang in the church, they sang at people's funerals, they sang at people's weddings, they were very great parents, of their time. So whatever that means, parents, you didn't know what they didn't know, but they were wonderful. I was very lucky to have. So being of service is something that you grew up with. Were you an activist back in the day, Maggie? You're younger than I am, so. Yeah, I became a vegetarian in my teens. My brothers are vegetarians too. I'm a vegan now, but we all grew up not wanting to eat meat. We were all like, ugh, that's an animal. I'm not eating that. My parents described us as like the cheap kids. Like they were super happy that we were so cheap to feed, because talking about food expense, of course, meat is expensive. Yes. But yeah, I was always involved in that. Always, wearing the protest T-shirts, etc. But I was also an actor, when you're in that acting world young, it becomes everything, it's a bit, what's the word, closed off. Yeah. So how did that happen for you? So you got to New York, and what happened when you got to New York? I got to New York and I pretty quickly got on a soap opera, actually, called Another World, playing a very funny, unsoap opera-like character of a man.
That was my soap opera. What were you on Another World? I watched Another World when I was.
Oh, my character
later.
My character was named Rhonda Sadowski. I was a manicurist who didn't know how to do nails very well. It was quite funny. It wasn't typical soap opera character. Yeah, and actually the director on that became a real big part of my life. It still is. His name is Ron Lagomarsino, and he then cast me in several plays. I did regional theater, as most young actors do in New York City. Mm-hmm. I did regional theater. I did plays in Florida and Cincinnati. I did many plays at Seattle Rep. Alaska Rep. I met my husband in Alaska at Alaska Rep. Just traveled around the country doing, 8-week jobs here and there. And then I did another soap opera. I did As the World Turns for a year. And I did a Broadway tour of the Heidi Chronicles. Well, I did As the World Turns, and my mom died suddenly when I was on that. That was quite brutal. And I was, in my mid-20s, and my mom suddenly died. And anyway, so not too long after that, I went on tour with the Heidi Chronicles, and then that made me find LA. And after 10 years in New York City, I was like, okay, enough of this. I loved New York in the beginning, but it does get tiring after a while. I still love it now, but at the time, New York in the 80s was rough. It had a bit of a scary side, and so I moved to LA at that point. So, yeah.
And so what happened? Were you able to move your career with you? Did it translate here?
Well, I don't know if I had a career. Do you know, it's such a long time ago. I was saying this to you earlier. I'm not typically, I'm not a person who talks a lot about old stories. I'm more about this is what I'm doing right now. So it almost seems like I'm talking about a different person, but to dredge up acting stories. I have all the dreadful acting stories that other people have. I have the dreadful being with an agent who basically shelved me and, told people I was out of town when they call for me and, only pushed their other. I have all those old terrible stories. Yeah, and then and then left that agent to go to this agent, who then immediately left to go to that. Being an actor is hard. It's not easy when you're young, and especially then. I don't know if it's harder now or then, but we couldn't make our own content. We couldn't put ourselves on Instagram, or you just had to wait for the phone to ring, basically. Take your classes. I used to have an answering service. Remember? Did you ever have an answering service?
Sure.
You'd call your answering service, and they would say, "All clear, Maggie." All clear meant nobody's interested. Okay, here's my best answering service thing that ever happened. I had a roommate once named Nina Handler, and I'm still friends with her on Facebook, actually. But Nina Handler, I was calling my answering service, and my answering service goes, "Oh, Maggie, hold on. Everybody wants to be on the call for this." So the whole answering service gets on the call, and then they go, "The message is, the duck's name is Morty." The duck's name is Morty. My roommate had brought home a baby duckling that she had rescued from someone, and he was running around our apartment. And my roommate was off staying with her boyfriend all the time. So I basically had to care for a baby duckling. And but I'll never forget my answering service. The duck's name is Morty.
So how did you, we have a lot of mutual friends from the Groundlings. How did you end up a Groundling? How did that happen?
Okay, so my mother died. I went on a national tour with the Heidi Chronicles. My agent dropped me in the middle of my national tour. By the way, with this line, "We saw you in the show. You were so incredible. You're so talented. We want to give you an opportunity to find an agent that will care about that."
What?
That's how I got dropped by my agent. Yeah. So I came to LA, and I had been doing regional theater and, living in New York a long time. And I went to see a friend of mine, McNally Segal, in a show with the Groundlings. She was in the school there. And I was like, oh my gosh, this looks like the most fun thing ever. And having grown up with watching Saturday Night Live and, loving Lily Tomlin more than anything on the planet in Laughing, I saw the Groundlings and I was like, oh, wow, this looks fun. And so I just took a class for fun, like I was so associated at that time in my life with like the serious actor, even though the roles I'd been playing, I did Noises Off with Ron Lagomarsino in Seattle. I was doing these really funny parts a lot of the time, but, I was a serious actor. And so I just went and had the best time. Kathy Griffin was my first teacher and my second teacher. And, I just kept going. I was lucky enough to sort of keep going. And I proceeded through the ranks, which didn't take as long then as they do now. And I got to watch all these amazing actors, who I had, oh my gosh, when I first all the people, Tracy and, and Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens. Patrick and I.
I got to give a shout out to Lynn.
Oh my God. Patrick and I used to get up at 8 a.m. in New York City every Saturday morning and lay in our bed and watch Pee Wee Herman, and Lynn was the greatest. Oh my God, that whole cast. So, to be in the halls of where those people had been was, too good. Phyllis Katz, these incredible talents. So I was very lucky to get into the Groundlings. I have some of my closest friends from the Groundlings still. Amy Smallman, lots of close friends. So, that's how I got there. And, I remember hearing that somebody in New York heard that I was in the Groundlings. And they're like, Maggie Baird is doing sketch comedy? I was like, it's so weird. There used to be this really weird division. Do you remember? It was like,
absolutely,
you were a stage actor or you were a movie actor, but movie actors never did television.
Right.
And theater actors never did sketch comedy. Like, it was so weird. There were all these hardcore lines about what you were allowed. None of those exist anymore, thank goodness. But
so you did stand up. You were saying that you went to some open mic nights.
Oh no, I went to open mic nights as a songwriter.
Okay. So we haven't talked about that part of your life. So when did you start doing that? When did you become like a singer-songwriter?
Well, okay, so I left the Groundlings when Finneas was little. I was still teaching there, but then I stopped and I, just full-time mommed. I started teaching music instead, actually. I wanted to teach things for kids more and be around, people with kids my age, etc. Mm-hmm. When I was a teenager, I was like a closeted songwriter. I wrote music. I had
Did you sing in the church stuff with your parents?
I sang in the church choir, and I sang at my friends' weddings. I grew up in a small town. People got married at 19. I sang at some weddings, and and I was a closeted writer. Like, my father knew my songs. My father always was like, why don't you do something with your songs? And I'd say, like, Dad, I'm already rejected enough as an actor. And not take being rejected as a songwriter. So then,
were your parents musical at all?
They were amazing.
Singing in the.
They sang really, really well. My father was a beautiful Irish tenor. My mother was a college for a soprano, but small town,
Right.
But they didn't play instruments. I played the guitar and the piano. But interestingly, this is the sad part of the story. When my father was dying, I decided to record a bunch of songs. I wrote a song for my wedding. I sang a song. Phyllis Katz sang harmony for me and Dorian Frankel, and I sang at my wedding in Topanga Canyon Campground. And I
saw your fabulous wedding picture. It's on your Facebook for anybody.
Oh yeah, it was awesome. But I sang a song, and my father was always like, that song could buy you a house. I was like, Dad, you don't understand the music business. It's really not that simple. But when my father was dying, I decided to go into the studio with some of the musicians from the Groundlings that I was really good friends with, Willie Etra and Larry Treadwell, and record songs for my dad. So I recorded an album called My Father's Daughter, and it was really just me trying to keep my dad alive, because he had a terminal illness, and I just thought, I'll give him something to look forward to, and maybe a reason to, I don't know, fight a little harder or something. So I recorded this album. He did hear it before he died, but like not even finished, but mostly. And then, I had little kids. I got pregnant with Billy, kind of put it aside again. And then I kind of got re-inspired. I was like, I'm going to go check my songs out again with Larry, see if I can fix them up. And then I got re-inspired to write a lot more. So then I started writing a lot more and kind of put together another CD's worth of songs. And, I was kind of toying with this idea. Well, could I actually, find a way to be a songwriter as not just hidden away? And I was talking to somebody, they said, you have to go perform, like you have to be out performing. So with small children or young children in the house, I just thought, there's no way I'm going to go out and perform. Like, there's no way. I'm going to cancel. I'm going to bail. So I organized this group of women, and we would get together and we would rehearse our songs together. All moms. I think everyone was a mom, maybe one dad. And we would rehearse our songs together, and then we would make a commitment that we'd go to an open mic night. We'd all sign up online together, like all the slots. And then I would play guitar for this person, and this person would sing harmony for me. That way we could never back out.
Right.
So we had a great time. Billy was little, Finneas was young. Every now and then they'd get up and, sing a little song. So we had like a couple of years of this open mic night family affair, all going out and we had all the class.
What kind of venues were you doing this at?
Oh, like the Left Coast Wine Bar and the Viva Cantina Mexican restaurant. Oh, there used to be a place in Burbank that was like an Irish pub. Do you remember that?
No, but I know Viva Cantina's in Burbank. I know that one. Yeah,
Irish pub would go, and we had all the classic experiences, people talking through our whole set, people shouting, This is partly what inspired the movie, though. The movie has a lot of open mic night scenes in it. So that was that inspiration. Again, what did I do? I got a group of women together to go do this thing. I think this seems to be this trend with me. Yeah, that's how that happened. And then, I wrote the movie, and then Finneas and Billy turned out to have this crazy, amazing talent that far surpassed my own. And, and that's where the dance studio came into play.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how that's. So you make your movie, and at the time, unless I'm wrong, Finneas was starting to rise, because he was playing in a band and he was playing gigs, and then he got Glee. Is that right?
No, he got Glee quite a bit later. No, he was in a band called the Slightlies. They were awesome. Yeah, he was in the Slightlies, and then he started producing. He started, not only writing his songs and doing his band, but started learning to produce and started producing all his songs.
Okay, so he started learning to produce. What does that mean?
He taught himself to produce.
It's unbelievable. It's just unfathomable.
My kids did not take lessons. The only lessons they had were choir. They learned to sing it. They learned a lot about choir. But no, they both taught themselves piano and guitar and producing. They just taught themselves. The only thing we taught them was Finneas, when he was like 11, wanted to sing in a town. No, he wanted to impress a girl. He wanted to impress a girl, and he wanted to be able to sing this song called Beautiful Disaster. So Patrick was like, well, here's what a chord is. And, here's the chords on this song. 2 weeks later, he was in a talent show singing, Falling Slowly, which was a totally different song.
Right.
And then he just like constantly would be watching YouTube and learning stuff. And the same then happened with Billy. And then Finneas started the same for production. He just scoured the internet and watched.
How do you have the equipment to do what you need to have to produce?
Well, you start with what's on your computer. You've got GarageBand,
Mm-hmm.
and then you start, and then you go, oh, they are using that thing on there, and I'll get that. And then luckily he did get Glee. He got, but it wasn't Glee. You know what? He did a movie called Bad Teacher. And he made a little bit of money in Bad Teacher, and he used that money to buy some pieces of equipment and stuff, but not a lot. You know, you can do a lot with what's on your, I mean, if you got a laptop, you know, it took a while for us to get him a laptop, but, you know, he just started experimenting. I don't know. It's crazy. He just got obsessive about it. He'd do it all night long. And so then he was producing, and then he wrote this song, you know, Ocean Eyes for
Okay, wait, before he gets to Ocean Eyes.
Yeah.
What does Billie do? Billie's very young.
She's super young. Yeah. Well, she was in choir. She was in choir, and she had this beautiful voice.
Uh-huh.
And she loved choir more than life itself, and loved dance. So she was in dance and choir. And dance.
Daryl just this minute said, "Love you both."
Well, dancing at Revolution Dance Center in Montrose down the street from you.
As my kids were as well.
And
with Jason, I have to give Jason a shout out. Jason, their favorite.
Their teacher, and Julie Kay and Julie Schmidt, who does deliveries for Support and Feed.
Aww.
Schmidt, yeah. And Julie Kay and Daryl have as well, and Jason. Anyway, they were both dancing at RDC, and one year, with Fred. Fred asked Finneas if he could do a dance to one of Finneas' songs. And so Finneas did this beautiful song called Your Mother's Favorite, and they did a dance for it in recital.
Uh-huh.
Everybody knew that Billie sang, because Billie and Finneas put some little song on SoundCloud, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, Billie can sing. And so Fred was like, well, can you guys do another song for recital with Billie? And so this is when Finneas suggested, well, because Billie had come into Finneas's room and sung Ocean Eyes, and it had been very beautiful. And so he's like, well, let's do that one. It's very lyrical. And they literally produced it for dance, you know? They were like, you know, you could see them in the room kind of, you know, this would be cool to do this. And so they produced it with this dance in mind, and they literally put it on SoundCloud. And the next day it had like 1,000 plays. Because they put it with a free download link too, because they literally just put it there for Fred. You know, they're like, hey,
right,
here's the song, right? And it got 1,000 plays, which of course doesn't seem like much to many people, but to them at the time was like, whoa, we made it. And
how does something like that even happen? They're unknowns. They put something on. How does that happen?
Well, I mean, it was the right moment for SoundCloud. You know, it wasn't overly saturated like it probably is now.
Mm-hmm.
It was new enough, but there were people that kind of scoured SoundCloud, right? And Billie already had a couple songs on there. She had a song called Fingers Crossed that she'd written in my songwriting class that I taught at the homeschool co-op, and Finneas had taken that class too. And you know, so she had a couple things on there already, and I think somebody heard the song. I think somebody put it on Reddit, and then a blogger called, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to forget his name. They're going to kill me if I forget this. Oh, shoot. I'm blanking on the name. I've said it a billion times. I'm sorry. I apologize.
It'll come to you. If you keep talking, it'll come to you.
It'll come to you. So he shared it on his blog, and then all these other people picked it up from that, right? And it was a great song. It was a beautiful song. And so the funny thing was, Billie and Finneas thought it was just their friend Frank, who was quite popular. They were like, oh, Frank must have played it first. You know, like they didn't know. So that just kind of launched people calling and asking. And then they were like, oh, well, let's write some more songs. So they like instantly started writing more songs. And, you know, I remember like the Sunday after Thanksgiving, I think the song came out like right before Thanksgiving. I was like, you're getting a lot of calls. Maybe you should go like do an open mic night, like see what that's like. So we went over to the Left Coast Wine Bar, I remember, and they sang Ocean Eyes, and they sang a new song they just written. That was like the first time they ever like did it. And yeah, and so, but that was almost 5 years ago. So people have a tendency to think things are like overnight, but they were quite lucky, of course, in the fact that it was a steady. Wait
a minute. That was only 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
It seems like they've been on the public consciousness forever. Like I can't even remember when they weren't. That's Crazy, because it seems like a long time to you, but to me that seems like yesterday. Wow.
Yeah. But the thing is, we never skipped any steps. Like I say we, because the first times Billy was doing a show out, we were riding in a white van with me and Finneas and Billy and, driving to San Francisco. And, the first tours were, the first time we went to Australia was me and Finneas and Billy. The managers booked it and we went to Australia by ourselves, and somebody greeted us there and kind of looked after us. But there were definitely all those steps along the way.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about that. How that, so they did a song. They did an open mic night. This blogger wrote about them. The hits on SoundCloud go from 1,000 to,
I don't know the numbers. A lot,
but I mean like a lot.
Yeah.
And so how did they? What were the steps after that? What happened? Because it became.
Oh, well, I don't know if we have that much time, but like they met the managers, and I mean, it's that's like a whole book, Vicki. The music industry. I mean, when you talk about my life, I feel like I learned all about I was completely immersed in being an actor, and then I was completely immersed in being in the Groundlings, and that's still acting, but and then I was like, I'm going to make a movie, and I'm completely immersed in that, and then I had to kind of learn the music industry, kind of just to be helpful, just to be, holding up, your children a little bit.
How did you learn as you go, Maggie? Were there people that you trusted that you could go to? How did you?
I asked a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions of a lot of people. And sometimes I'd be like, hey, come over here in this room. Can I ask you about this? Because I didn't know how to answer this question without asking this other person. I mean, the music industry is confusing. I will say it's very confusing. It's very deep. And, there's a lot to learn about it. And, I just asked a lot of questions. And I mean, I was kind of wide-eyed for the first couple of years. It was intense, it was not easy. It's a lot. It's not easy, but, she has a great team. Every person that came on board to Billy and Finneas' team has been amazing. That's made all the difference. I think that's the key to life.
How did those relationships happen? I mean, were there people that you said no to? Did the team organically come together? Did you seek it out? Did they seek you out? What happened? How did that come together?
Well, it's a piece by piece thing, again, without writing the book,
right.
You need this person, and this person knows this person you recommend, and sometimes it's a fit and sometimes it's not. And there's a lot of saying no. I think no is very important. You've got to be particular. You've got to know what your vision is. You got to know what your path is, and you got to just stick to that.
Did you guys have a when the success started to come at the beginning? Did you have a vision?
I think the vision comes to you, but I think the vision, okay, this is what I will say. I'm going to stick to my part of the story.
Yeah.
Because my biggest concern in the beginning was that she was 13 years old when Ocean Eyes came out, right? And then 14 years old. And my biggest worry was that it would be a flash in the pan kind of a thing, like some kind of big push and then you're done, right? And then where are you? That was my biggest worry. And I think I started to feel better every time we met a person who had a long vision, right? Who was talking about where are you going to be in 5 years? And that mattered to me a lot. So nobody on her team, nobody didn't believe in her and Finneas, of course, because Billy and Finneas are, they're part of the same, picture. And everyone had a long vision, and we didn't let anyone near us who would not have a long vision, right? So nobody would be trying to exploit or capitalize on anything for a fast buck. It was a long game, like I say, touring small venues, not songs on the radio for years, just developing a life in the music industry, and not just a burnout, you know? So yeah.
Are decisions made in group, like as a family? Like, do you make decisions as a family?
Well, it depends. I mean, Billie is 18 now. She has a team, you know, I still help her a lot and I still try to guide her, but you know, she has managers, always has, and day-to-day manager and record label. She's got a lot of people to ask for advice. I try to just be there to help be, you know, keep in mind, you know, where you got to be when, and oh, remember you wanted to say this or you wanted to do that. You know, Finneas is just 23 now. He's really full on, you know, he certainly doesn't need my help at all. You know, I just try to be their mom, but also, you know, here's the thing, like their team is amazing. No complaints. But the truth is there's only one person who's really looking out just for you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's your mom or dad, you know, or hopefully you, but you know, they're so busy. So, you know, that's what you need. That's what you need in life. I think, especially, I don't know how people do it in the music business without, in any kind of business, without somebody who's really just like, you know, I'm just here for you, you know?
What happened with schooling? How did Billie do that?
Well, we had always been homeschoolers. So, I mean, had nothing to do with the industry at all. Like we were homeschoolers because we wanted to be with our kids all the time. We thought this city was rich with opportunities to do stuff. And, you know, Park Days and Face LA was a great support group that we had. We did field trips everywhere. And so we had always homeschooled. So that didn't change, you know. So it's just a lifestyle, a world. It's funny, everyone's homeschooling now, but we always did it, you know. Unfortunately, now people can't do what we did, which was we were rarely in our house. You know, we were in parks or on field trips or in classes with other people somewhere else.
I was going to say you incorporated a lot of other people in your world.
For sure. Yeah, so it's not the same for people right now. It's super hard. But I think that's part of what led them to be able to create the way they create, because it was part of our philosophy that you know, we tried to strew stuff in their path. And if they were interested in, then we delved, right? So
you saw the music as being something important to them early on. So was that part of their schooling, or was that what they did after school?
No, there was no after school. We didn't have this is school and this is after school. Mm-hmm. No, in fact, when Finneas got so interested in music, we started going to the Grammy Museum every week, because the Grammy Museum had this great educational program every week. Like it would be like music of the Civil War or music of the Civil Rights Movement. And then the next would be like how to use Ableton beats and how to do this, how to produce. So we just started going to the Grammy Museum because that's what he was interested in, right? And the same for Billie, you know, whatever they were interested in. So we had a rule in our house, though, that if you are making music, we wouldn't tell you to go to bed. So, you know, because
you know, a lot of music.
Yeah. Well, when you're creative, you know, anyone who's creative, and especially musicians, know that a lot of times the urge strikes at night, right?
Yeah.
And we weren't going to say go to sleep if you were making music, you know. And somebody said to me, like, well, what if they're just hacking around? It's like, that's what making music is. You're just hacking around, you know. I'm not going to judge like, oh, this is valid and this is not valid. So we did have that. I suppose that's the one kind of thing we did sort of outwardly say.
How was socialization? Well, I know they went to dance classes and they did other things where they were with other. Was it ever challenging though because they were homeschooled? No.
No, I mean, I think that's one of the. There's two words that people kind of mix up in homeschooling: socialization and socializing, right? Socialization is learning the rules of society. How do you learn the rules of society? You go to a concert, you go to a play. You know, you can learn to wait in line and sit in a chair and be quiet in a lot of ways. Right? It's not that hard, you know? But as far as socializing, interacting with other people, I mean, I know this isn't true for everybody, because people homeschool for all kinds of different reasons in all kinds of different ways. But in our case, the reason we homeschooled, like we were involved with people day and night. My kids had more time with friends than any people on the planet, you know, because they had the kind of hours to do it. So yeah, that never was a problem among any of the people I knew. There were always plenty of kids around.
Okay, so let's get to present. I know you like the present. Let's talk about the present. So I've been watching some of you go live on Instagram a lot. Do you have a regular slot? Do you have a regular thing that you do on a specific time?
Yeah, we kind of do now. Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. I tend to go live on Instagram with amazing guests. We found that's a pretty good time for people. So it's support and feed related, but it's on my own Instagram. We are featuring young environmentalists and activists, incredible, inspiring people that are going to save the planet and make all of our lives better. Yeah, and I also share, vegan tips, plant-based tips. I have vegan influencers, plant-based influencers, maybe people in any aspect of the environment or social justice guests. So that's what I do Wednesday mornings.
And I saw you make incredible brownies using sweet potatoes as an egg substitute, which I never would have thought of. I wanted to know how they taste, though. That's what I want to know. Are they
so good? Oh my God, they're honestly the best vegan brownies I've ever made or had. I make them all the time now. So good. I think I shared the recipe on my on our support and feed. You can find it.
Okay, so what else? What else do you make that is just the best? Like the thing that you all like? Oh, I'm going to make that tonight.
Oh, well, I don't know about tonight, but my most famous thing is my cinnamon rolls, which are featured in the movie Life Inside Out. Yeah, I make cinnamon rolls from sort of the day after Thanksgiving till New Year's. I make 1 million cinnamon rolls. They're vegan, of course, and they're amazing. So I think that's like my most famous thing. But, Finneas loves my peanut noodles. Billie loves my tofu salad. I like my yellow curry. I love soup.
What's your favorite soup? What soups do you make that you love?
I like any and every kind of soup. I was saying this to you early, Vicki. You were talking about the work involved in cooking, especially cooking. The key is to prep it all at the same time. So if you're cutting an onion, cut 2 onions or cut more than you need, and then cut some celery and carrots at the same time and put it away in the fridge. Just like you might go to Trader Joe's, you buy mirepoix, right? The carrots, onion, and celery. You can make that at home. So just kind of think ahead. Like if I'm throwing in some potatoes to bake, I'm also going to throw in a head of garlic. The other day I threw in 5 tomatoes that were I kept forgetting to use them. I threw them in and roasted them. Now you've got these beautiful roasted vegetables all at the same time that you can use all week long. So it's kind of just like thinking ahead and, preparing the basics, having them around.
It sounds great. Maggie, thank you so much for doing this. You're so inspiring and you just get so much done. Okay, so wait, before we go, do you take downtime? Are you binging anything? What's recreation for you?
Oh, that's hard. I do like to swim. I love to swim. Mm-hmm. And that really clears my brain when I can swim. And I do meditate. I am a meditator. And sometimes it's only 5 minutes, but the difference of meditating or not is huge. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I binged a couple things with Billie in the beginning. I enjoyed some of it. Some of it I regretted, but I not too much, but meditation.
So when your day is done, how do you unwind from your day before you go to bed?
I use a meditation app. I put a meditation app. I put in eye shades. I have one called Simple Habit, and I put in my earbuds. It's kind of the only way I can shut my mind. I have NPR.
But there must be a period at the end of the workday before you go to bed that the unwind time. No,
sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes my brain hurts so bad because I'm on a Zoom and a Zoom and a Zoom and a Zoom, a Zoom about support and feed and a Zoom about, Billie thing and a Zoom about this. And my brain literally hurts. And sometimes I'm I don't know. I don't know, play it by ear. If I can get in a swimming pool, I used to do aerial. That was my thing. I was an aerialist. And then I got a bit of an...
In the pictures. Oh my God.
That was my fun release, but I'm getting back there. My shoulder's getting back. But I don't know. It's being time, we do what we do.
Well, Maggie, thank you so much for doing this and for being so inspiring. You certainly inspire me, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you for talking about voting. That's all I care about right now. Voting, voting, voting.
That's what we've got to do. So how can people find you on Instagram? Because it's not exactly your name.
I think it's Maggie M. Baird. Maggie M. Baird, and also support the feed. You can follow both of those. But Maggie M. Baird.
I will put both of those in the link in the show. Thank you so much for doing this. I adore you. You're just wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. I hope you're doing okay. I know it's very hard, especially in California.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go through the fee questions, and I'll direct you to anybody that's got one for you to answer directly, and I'll tag you on it. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm sorry that I wasn't paying attention to you while we were talking. But I had Maggie. I got to pay attention to Maggie. But I love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow on Shooting the Shit. And thank you again, Maggie.
Thank you. Bye.